So now let us start with essay number 580, written representations. Okay. So essay number 580 deals with written representations, mainly the written representations given by management to auditor. Okay. So why does the management give the written representations? To confirm certain matters and to support other audit evidence. Okay. However, written representations do not include financial statements, assertions, supporting books and records. So this can be asked in MCQ, whether they will give one more item and they will ask us which of these is not a written representation. So written representation is given by management to the auditor to confirm certain matters and to support other audit evidence. They do not include financial statements, assertions, supporting books and records. So written representation is similar to response to inquiries and it is audit evidence, but it is not sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. It is necessary audit evidence, but it is not sufficient and appropriate. So whatever facts that the management provides, if they are reliable, then they will be considered as written representation, and these written representations do not affect the nature and extent of other audit evidence that the auditor obtains. Okay, so there's an MCQ over here. Written representations are necessary audit evidence, sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. See, they are not sufficient and appropriate. It is not an audit evidence. Audit evidence depending upon auditor's professional judgment. No. So written representations are necessary audit evidence. Now, in this particular essay, that is essay 580, what is the objective of the auditor? The objective of the auditor is ORS. So you can remember the ORS drink. Okay. So ORS is obtain, support, and respond. So management and TCWG, wherever appropriate, then TCWG will give the written representation, but it's generally management. So written representation that is obtained from management and TCWG, that they believe that they fulfill their responsibility for preparation and presentation of financial statements for completeness of information to the auditor. So you will obtain written representation from the management and wherever appropriate from TCWG that they believe that they fulfill their responsibilities regarding PPFS and completeness of information to auditor. Second thing, support. So the written representation should support other audit evidence relevant for financial statements and also the assertions in the financial statements. So what is the objective of the auditor? To obtain written representation from management and to also obtain such a kind of written representation that will support other audit evidence relevant for financial statements and also support the assertions in the financial statements. The third one is to respond to written representation provided and written representation requested but not provided. So whatever written representation that the management has provided, respond to it, whether it is okay, it is sufficient or not for you. And if you have requested the management but the management didn't provide any written representation to you, then also you need to respond. Okay. Now, written representation is obtained from management with appropriate responsibility for financial statements. So there are different levels in management. So obtain written representation from that management that has appropriate responsibility for financial statements and that has knowledge of the matter concerned, and management may vary on governance structure as per law and regulations. So management will vary. The level of the management will vary as per the governance structure. So what is the form? The form is in the form of a representation letter. Okay. So the letter should be addressed to the auditor. Because management is giving to the auditor, the letter should be addressed to the auditor. So where law or regulation requires management to make public written statement about its responsibilities. So management is already given a public written statement about its responsibility as provided by the law. Then in that case, there is no need to give a separate written representation to the auditor. So auditor determines that such statements provide some or all information required regarding management responsibility. If they are providing all information, then the auditor will not ask the management to give again further written representation. But if they are only providing some extent of information and he wants more information about the management responsibility, then he will ask the management to send a written representation letter to him. So matters covered by law or regulation need not to be included in written representation. Any other matter can be included which the auditor deems it necessary as per his professional judgment. Next, date and periods covered by written representation. So what is the date of written representation? So the date of written representation should be as near as practicable to, but not after the date of auditor's report. It should be as near as practicable to the auditor's report, date of auditor's report, but it should never be after the date of auditor's report. This can be asked in the form of an MCQ. So, period. So it should be for all financial statement and periods referred to in the auditor's report. So in auditor's report, whatever financial statements periods that we have referred, so it should be for all those periods and for all financial statements. Next, where there are situations that the current management is not present during all periods. Okay, so the current management was not present during the all periods, then this does not diminish their responsibility for financial statements. For example, you are a new management that came in just this year. So just because you are a new management, you cannot say that I do not have any responsibility to report, to give a written representation on the previous financial periods. So this does not diminish their responsibility for financial statements. Next, issues with written representation. So where the auditor has sufficient doubt about the integrity of the management, then written representation about management responsibilities will be not reliable. Okay, they will not be reliable. He has a doubt about the integrity of the management. Then whatever written representations that the management has given, they are not reliable. Then what will the auditor do? The auditor will disclaim an opinion. Okay, so in that case, he will disclaim an opinion. And if the auditor is concerned about the competence, integrity, ethical values, and diligence of the management, okay, then in that case, the auditor will determine the effect of concerns on reliability of other representations, okay, and also on audit evidence. So the management is not competent. There is a doubt on its integrity. It does not, follow its ethics. There is no diligence in its work. Then in that case, the auditor will determine the effect of those concerns on the reliability of other representations and also on the audit evidence. So on the audit evidence, how will it determine whether the written representation is inconsistent with other audit evidence? So whatever other audit evidence that is obtained, whatever written representation that the management is giving, both are not consistent. They are inconsistent. Then in that case, the auditor will perform audit procedures to resolve the matter. So what kind of audit procedures will he perform? He will check whether the risk assessment procedure is appropriate. If not, then he will revise it and determine the nature and extent of further audit procedures. Okay. So in this case, there is no disclaiming on opinion. First, he will check whether it is inconsistent with other audit evidence. If it is inconsistent, then he will perform audit procedures to resolve the matter. Okay. Like he will check whether the risk assessment procedure is appropriate. If it is not appropriate, then he will revise it and they will determine the nature and extent of further audit procedures. Okay. So these are the issues. And one more thing is that if the management didn't provide written representation about management responsibilities, management didn't provide any written representation about its responsibilities, then the auditor will again disclaim an opinion. Now, if the management didn't provide other written representation, then the auditor will discuss the matter with management and take appropriate action, and he will reevaluate the integrity of the management and also its effect on reliability of representations and other audit evidence. So basically what he will do, if the management didn't provide written representation about its responsibilities, then he will straight away disclaim an opinion. If the management didn't provide written representation in respect to other written representation, it's not about management responsibilities, then the auditor will discuss the matter with management and he will take appropriate action and he will reevaluate the integrity of the management and also the effect of not providing other representations on reliability of representations and audit evidence. So SA 580 has 4 wings over here. The first one is about management responsibility, written representation about management responsibility, written representation about deficiency in internal control, assertions, and others. So first and foremost, let us understand written representation about management responsibility. So what is the responsibility of the management for preparation and presentation of financial statements as per applicable financial reporting framework? So if the management includes in the written representation qualifying language, so the management is using qualifying language in its written representation, then it means that management is very confident about the representations it makes that are best of their knowledge and belief. So management includes in its written representation qualifying language to affect that representations made are to the best of their knowledge and belief. Okay, so in that case it will use qualifying language. So this can be asked in the form of an MCQ. And so this is the first part. The second point is auditor asks management to confirm in written representation that appropriate inquiries were made for informed decision making. So he will ask the management, did you make appropriate inquiries for informed decision making? Then the management will say yes. Then confirm that in your written representation. Confirm it in your written representation that whatever appropriate inquiries that you made, did you make appropriate inquiries for informed decision making or not? Okay. So next we have the second one. Second part is information provided is complete in respect of all transactions. Whether the information that the management has provided to the auditor is complete in respect of all transactions, that is the second part. Next, management provides written representations to the auditor that it has provided the auditor all information and all access as agreed in the terms of engagement. So give a written representation about your responsibilities in respect of preparation and presentation of financial statements as per AFRF. Then the auditor will ask the management in respect of whether you made appropriate inquiries or not. Include that also in your written representation. Next, give a written representation that whatever information that you have provided is complete. Give a written representation that you have provided all information and all access to the auditor as agreed in the terms of engagement. SA 210. And whatever transactions, that all transactions are recorded and reflected in financial statements. Again, this is again the same thing. Whether all transactions are complete or not. Information provided is complete in respect of all transactions or not. Okay. Next, why written representation about management responsibility is necessary? So why is it necessary? First and foremost, audit evidence. So it acts as a source of audit evidence that management's role and responsibility with respect to preparation, presentation of financial statements and providing information completeness of transaction. So management, if the management gives a written representation, then it will act as a source of evidence. But if the management didn't give any written representation, in the future the management tell, no, I didn't say that I'm responsible for PPFS, or I didn't tell that I'm responsible for providing information to you. So whenever you obtain that information, written representation from the management, it will act as a source of audit evidence for you. Next, it will help in reconfirmation. So management acknowledges and understands its responsibilities. इसके लिए it will act as a source of reconfirmation again and again that the management is acknowledging and understanding its responsibilities. So these written representations become more important, particularly when there is a change in management. So if there is a change in management, a new management came, then the new management will tell that I don't know what the old management did. The old management didn't give any, written representation. Then these will act as source of audit evidence and reconfirmation, especially when there is a change in management, when the terms of engagement were prepared in a previous year, when there's an indication that management misunderstands their responsibilities, and in case of change in circumstances, these written representations become more important. So this can be tested in the form of a question. Next, management responsibilities should be in the form of description and written representation in the same manner in which these responsibilities were described in terms of engagement. So how the management describes its responsibilities in the terms of engagement, in a similar manner they should be described in written representation as well. So this was management responsibilities ka written representation. The next one is additional written representation about deficiencies in internal control. So management should give written representation to the auditor that management has communicated to auditor all the deficiencies in internal control which the management is aware. So in SC 265 we read a point that sometimes the management, it has identified significant deficiencies, but it is not taking any action. So it is being inactive. So that was indicator of ineffective controls, that is indicator of significant deficiency. So if the management knows about any significant deficiencies, whether it has communicated to the auditor or not, so it should communicate any information that it knows about all the deficiencies in internal control to the auditor. Next, written representation about specific assertion. So the auditor should give audit evidence. So the auditor needs audit evidence about management's intention or judgment. So management's intention or judgment will have a direct impact on the financial statements. So the auditor needs audit evidence. So in order to obtain this audit evidence, the auditor will perform audit procedures. So what are the audit procedures that he will perform? Past history of carrying out intentions, reasons for a particular course of action, ability to pursue that particular course of action, and the existence of inconsistent information with respect to management intention. So what was the past history of carrying out your intentions? What are the reasons for a particular course of action? Why are you only taking this kind of action? What is the reason for this particular course of action? Ability to pursue that particular course of action. Okay, you're telling that you want to take this particular action. Can you actually take it? What is the ability? Do you have that ability? And the existence of inconsistent information with respect to management intention. So in addition to these audit evidence, so these are the kind of audit evidence that he will obtain. So he will conduct audit procedures and he will obtain audit evidence in respect of these items. Okay. In addition to these audit evidence, the auditor will obtain written representation of management to support audit evidence with respect to management intentions or judgment. Okay. Next, other written representation. So, SA 580 outlines about written representation, that is general requirement to obtain written representation for management in respect of its responsibilities, in respect of whether it is communicating deficiencies that it has identified or not. But there are other standards in which there is specific responsibility. There are specific written representations. For example, if you take a look at SA 501, so this essay specifies about written representations with respect to specific audit areas in respect of inventory, litigation and claims, then segment reporting. So there are a few standards in which there is written representation as per those specific requirements of that standard. So in terms of like SA 501, they should give written representation with respect to specific audit areas. So beyond this, the auditor may determine based on their professional judgment that additional written representations are necessary to support their other audit evidence or to confirm specific assertions in the financial statements. So beyond this management responsibility, beyond the written representations as per the specific essays, the auditor may feel like in his professional judgment he needs some other written representation as well. Okay. So auditor may seek further written representation about financial statements in addition to written representation about responsibility of management. These written representations will be separate. They can support or supplement written representation for management responsibility, but they will not be part of written representation for management responsibility. Written representation for management responsibility is separate. If you want to obtain any other representation which will support this, then you can obtain. But these supporting written representations will never be part of management responsibility written representations. So what are the examples of such kind of supporting written representations? Selection of accounting policies. So you can ask the management to give a written representation about what kind of accounting policy it has selected, about amount classification, presentation and disclosure of certain matters as per AFRF, like contingent liabilities, like what is the plan or intention for classification of that assertion, whether it has complied with law regulations with respect to title and encumbrances. So these are the examples of supporting written representation which are not a part of management responsibility written representations. So we are done with essay number 580.